Hi, and welcome to my third video of Introduction to C#. In the previous two lectures, we create a very simple Excel automation application. But in this third video, in this third lecture, I want to introduce you to the very basic concept of class and objects, class attributes and class methods. Okay, so as usual, open Visual Studio and create a new project. Okay, in this lecture, we will create a new project, not the previous project, but a new project. So click Create a New Project and make sure you select C#, Windows, Console, .NET Framework, and click Next. And the project name, we want to create a application of student app. Okay, and create. Oops, I've already have it. So student app. Okay, student app, and create. Okay, a new project, student app project is created. So the first step is to create a new class. Okay, to create a class, we have two ways. The first way is to create it in this the program.cs file, and another way is to create it in a separate file. In most cases, we create it in a separate file. But first create here, and then we will move it to a separate file. So class, to create a class, we press class, and the class name here is student, class student. Class student, and curly braces here. Okay, this is an empty class. And in this empty class, we set 4 attributes. Attributes are in general called variables. So in a class, variables are called attributes. Outside the class, attributes are called variables. Okay? So in the student class, we will make 3 attributes. Okay, the first one is the name of the student, public. The name is string, public string name. Make sure that the identifier of the attribute is Pascal case. The first letter of the variable is uppercase. Okay. The second attribute is the major, public string, the major of the student, public string major. Okay, and the last attribute is his GPA, his or her GPA, public float GPA. Okay, so we have 4 attributes. This is a very basic beginning of the class. So here, let's put it in a different file. So put it in a different file. We have 2 ways of doing it. The first is to use Solution Explorer. So right click and select create. Where is create? Or add? Okay, add class. We can create a new class from here, or this is this is faster. Press Alt and Enter and select move type to student.cs. Okay, click this. Here, when you look at the Explorer on the right hand side, you will notice that there is a new file called student.cs. So when we click it, here we have the new class student.cs we have just created in a separate file. Okay. A class is an empty concept. We cannot use it. We cannot handle it. We cannot assign a value to it, to a class. So we have to create an object from the class to use it. Object is an instance of a class. And to create it, we need a special method called Constructor. Constructor is a method to create an object from a class. So the next step is to create a constructor. Okay, so public, and the identifier of the constructor is the same as the class name, public student, and we pass 4 attributes here. No, these are variables, 4 initial variables. String name, and because they are variable, the first letter of the identifier is lowercase, not the uppercase. So this class attributes has uppercase in the first letter, but general variables are lower cases. So string name, and the next one is string major, and the last one is string GPA and curly braces. Okay. Public student float GPA. Public student. Okay, and inside the curly braces, we need to initialize the attributes of the class. So we have 3 attributes, name, major, and GPA, and we have to initialize them. So this dot name, this refers to the class. This class name, the name of this class, the name attribute of this class equals name, and the name, the major the major of this class equals major. Oh, this is not semicolon. This should be comma. String major, string GPA. Okay. This dot name is name. This dot uppercase major is a lowercase major, and the last one is this dot uppercase GPA. This dot GPA is lowercase GPA. So, okay, the lowercase GPA and the lowercase major and the lowercase name are different from this uppercase. The lowercase name, major, and GPA are variables, initial values, but the uppercase attributes are attributes which belong to this class, and we initialize these attributes by the lowercase name, major, and GPA. Okay. Oops, this .gpa, oh, GPA is not a string, it should be float. Okay. Yes. So we have made a class student. The next step is to create a new object from this class. So go back to program.cs, Control Tab. So we can switch between files by pressing Control Tab, Control Tab. Okay, now we are in the program.cs. So in the main method of the program.cs, inside the curly braces, let's create a new instance from the student class. Var student1. So this is the identifier of the first object we will create from now. Var student1 equal new student. So we call the constructor here. This student is the constructor in the student.cs. So because this is a constructor, we need to pass initial variables to this constructor. So the first one is the name of the student. So let's call it Jim. The first student is Jim, and his major is business, and he has GPA of say 2.8 float GPA. Yes. Now we have created a student1 object. So class is an empty concept, and from that class we can create, or we should create, an object to use it. In this example, in this line of code, we have created student1 from the student class and assigned 3 new variables to its attributes. The uppercase name attribute has initial value Jim, name Jim. It is assigned to this new created object, and attribute, the second attribute is major, and business is assigned to it. It is the initial value of the class attribute, of this object attribute. And the third one is 2.8 GPA. So 2.8 GPA is assigned to the GPA attribute of this newly created object. And this object is called student1, identifier student1. Okay, so let's create another object. So again, var student2 equal new student. I press tab here. New just pressing S and then press tab. Autocomplete. New student, and then pass the initial values, initial variables. So the name of the second student can be anything, but let's say John. His major is art, and he has 3.5 GPA. Okay, we have 2 students. From the same student class, we have created 2 objects, 2 different objects. The first object is a student1 object, and the second object is student2 object. They're different, but have the same attributes. They have name, they have major, and they have GPA. Each of them have different values. Okay, so let's see the values we just stored by by printing out in the console. So console.applicate. So console.writeLine, press CW and tab to autocomplete. Console.writeLine to access the attribute of student1. First press student1, student1, autocomplete student1 dot student1 dot anything dot attribute. So the first one is name, student1 dot name, and the second one, so I use another shortcut here, Control D. By pressing Control D, we can duplicate the line by Control D. So console.writeLine, student1 dot, the second attribute is major, student1 dot major, and the third one, Control D, is console.writeLine, student1 dot GPA, uppercase GPA. Okay. So we do the same for the student2, Control D, Control D, Control D. So then change it to student2 dot name, student2 dot major, and student2 dot GPA. Okay. Now everything looks fine. So let's start it. Press start and see what's happened. Okay, I guess it is running now. Nothing happens. Okay, so press start again. Oh, we need another line of code here to prevent the console from closing. So console dot readline. So without this line of code, all of the code was executed, but it is immediately closed after that. So we can't see it. So we need console.readline to keep the console open. Okay, so let's start again. Console.readline. Now we have the expected output. The name of the first student is Jim here, and his major is business, and he has 2.8 GPA. And the name of the second student is John. His major is art, and he has 3.5 GPA. Okay, this is what we expected. Okay, so what we want to do next is we want to change the value. So say Jim GPA has increased to 3.2. So we can assign a new value. So let's do it here. Student1 dot GPA equals 3.2, and below it console.writeLine student1 dot GPA. So again I press tab key, so I do it again here. So okay, I do the whole line here again. To autocomplete console.writeLine, press CW and tab. Press tab twice. CW and press tab twice. And in the parentheses, student1, so press student just by S. I have student1 here, and press tab to autocomplete student1 dot. To access the attribute inside this object, press dot and GPA. Yes. So I expect that the first GPA is 2.8, but the second GPA has changed to 3.2. Okay, so delete the information of student 2, just information of student 1, and press start. Okay, now let's see what happened. The name is the same. His name is Jim, his major is business, but look here. His GPA was 2.8, but after that it has changed to 3.2. So we have changed it. Okay. Okay. So let me talk what happened if we do not have class. In this case, if you do not have class, if you want to do the same thing, we need 8 variables. Okay, for example, for student 3 and student 4, we don't have class, but we want to do the same thing. So var, okay, var, but we can also do like this: string name student 3 equal, okay, say Tim, and we can change the string to var, and this name student 3 is the identifier of the variable just for student 3. And if we have another student, we need to create another variable, var name student 4 equals anchor, and so on. Okay, so var name student 5 equal Laura. Okay, for students 3, 4, and 5, we need to set new variables for them. And the same thing for major and GPA. So in total, we need 9 variables. This is redundant. This is inefficient. By class, so let's go back to the example of student 1 and 2. By class, we just have 3 attributes: name, major, and GPA. It is the same for student 1 and same for student 2. And to access it, when we want to access to the name of student 1, we just type student1.name, and for student 2, it is student2.name. Okay, this is the power of class. We don't have to create different variables. Okay, so in this lecture, we look at how to create new class here. So we create a class student which have 3 attributes. Again, attributes are variables inside a class. And in the class, we see how to create a constructor. Again, constructor is a special method to create an object from the class. So this public student here, this block of code is a constructor. And in the constructor, we assign the initial value to the attributes. So this is the object itself. This object's name, uppercase name, is equal to the lowercase name. The lowercase name is, okay, the lowercase name for student 1, it is Jim, and the lowercase name for student 2, it is John. And the lowercase major is assigned to the uppercase major. And lowercase measure for student 1 is business, and lowercase measure for student 2 is art. Same for GPA. So this is the constructor. And by this constructor, we can create a new object. And this two line of code, var student 1 and var student 2, do the job. So var student 1 is the identifier of the new object we will create. var student 1 is new, the new keyword. Okay, another way to think about this is by the new keyword, we call the constructor, the student constructor. New student, by typing new student, we call the constructor, student constructor. New student, and we have to pass the variables we defined in the constructor. So we need name, major, and GPA. The constructor, so look here, we pass gym, business, and 2.8. 3 variables, which is required. And for student 2, we do the same thing. var student 2, again, student 2 is the identifier, and keyword new student, we call the constructor, and pass 3 variables. Initial variable, John, art, and 3.5. So by these 2 lines of code, we have created 2 different objects from the same class student. So we can create any numbers, many objects from the same students. Each share the same attributes. Okay, so that's it for this third lecture. Thank you for listening, and see you again in the next lecture. Until then, happy coding. Bye bye.